Hi.
I always thought Jody and I had a solid marriage. We've been together for 12 years, married for 7, built a nice life, good home, steady jobs, and what I thought was mutual trust. But I guess every fool thinks that before the truth smacks them in the face. It started with a phone call. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hey, is this Trey?" A guy's voice, low and urgent. "Yeah, who's this?" I asked, already wary. A pause. Then, "It's Michael. I work with your wife. Look, I know this is out of the blue, but I need to tell you something. Your wife, Jody, she's cheating on you, man. With Stan Morrison." I felt my stomach drop. It was like someone had yanked the floor from under me. "What?" Michael sighed, like he hated being the bearer of bad news. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but I couldn't just let you be blindsided. "She's planning to meet up with him at the Evergreen Hotel tomorrow night. Room's already booked." I wanted to laugh it off, call him a liar, hang up. But deep down something clicked. Jody had been different lately, staying late at work more often, guarding her phone like it held nuclear codes. And Stan Morrison. I knew the guy. Worked in her department, always a little too friendly. "You sure about this?" I asked, my voice tight. "Yeah. 100%. I know because I overheard them making plans. I'm sorry, man." I hung up without another word. My hands were shaking, but my mind was racing. I needed proof. I needed to be smart. If Jody thought she was getting away with this, she was dead wrong. Tomorrow night I'd find out everything. And then, she'd never see it coming. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept running through every moment of the past few months, replaying little things that didn't seem important at the time but now felt like flashing warning signs. Jody coming home late. Her locking her phone. The way she suddenly seemed distant. I could have confronted her right then and there. Just woken her up and demanded the truth. But I wasn't about to give her the chance to gaslight me, to cry and say I was being paranoid. No, I needed proof. So the next morning I called a private investigator. Found one with solid reviews and a no-nonsense attitude. A guy named Dean. When I told him the situation, he didn't ask dumb questions like, "Are you sure?" He just asked for details. "When and where?" He said. "Evergreen Hotel. Tonight." "Got it. I'll get you what you need." It was almost unsettling how quickly he moved, like he'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe he had. The rest of the day I had to act normal. That was the hardest part. Jody kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, just like always. Told me she had a late meeting. I almost laughed. I went to work, went through the motions, but all I could think about was that hotel. The betrayal. The fact that the woman I loved, the woman I would have done anything for, was sneaking around with some sleazy coworker. Around 6 p.m. I got a text from Dean. They checked in. Room 214. I gripped my phone so hard my fingers went numb. This was it. The moment everything changed. I wasn't just going to sit back and let this happen. Jody thought she had it all figured out. But she was about to learn the hard way. I wasn't the kind of man you betray and walk away from unscathed. I sat in my car outside the Evergreen Hotel, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The parking lot was half full, the neon sign flickering in that sad way cheap motels always seem to. Room 214. That's where Jody was. With him. Dean had sent me pictures. Jody and Stan, checking in. Stan had his hand on her lower back, way too comfortable. Jody, looking around nervously but still following him inside. If there was any part of me that had hoped this was all some misunderstanding, those pictures killed it. I could have kicked down that door right then, caught them in the act. But that's not what I wanted. I didn't want just a screaming match. I wanted consequences. So I called Dean. "You still outside?" he asked. "Yeah," I muttered. "You got the proof?" "Photos. Video. Audio. The whole thing. Want me to send it to you now?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "No. Just hold on to it. I'll need it soon. Because I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to make sure Jody lost everything. But first I wanted to see her face when she realized she was caught. I got out of the car and walked straight into the lobby. The receptionist barely glanced up as I strode past, like I belonged there. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Room 214. I stood outside the door listening. Muffled voices. Laughter. A clink of glasses. My stomach turned. I raised my fist and knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. A pause. Jody's voice hesitant. Stan. I knocked again, harder this time. The door cracked open, just a sliver. And then I saw her. Jody, wrapped in a cheap hotel robe, her hair messy. When her eyes met mine, all the color drained from her face. Trey. I shoved the door open. Stan was standing by the bed, shirtless, a drink in his hand. He blinked at me, confused at first. Then his face twisted into something between panic and arrogance. Jody scrambled back, pulling the robe tighter. Trey, I can explain. I let out a short, cold laugh. Oh, I bet you can. Stan, the idiot, finally found his voice. Hey man, you can't just barge in here. I turned to him, my expression blank. Shut up, Stan. He did. Jody reached out, her hands shaking. Trey, please. I stepped back, holding up my phone. I could see the fear in her eyes. She already knew. You're done, Jody. Jody's whole body went stiff when she saw my phone. She wasn't stupid. She knew what that meant. Trey, listen, she started, her voice shaking. I made a mistake, okay? We can talk about this. I let out a cold laugh. A mistake? Jody, a mistake is forgetting our anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did. That's a choice. Over and over again. Stan, standing there in his stupid half-naked state, finally decided to grow a spine. All right man, that's enough. I turned to him, stepping closer. What, Stan? You got something to say? You gonna fight for her now? You gonna tell me how it just happened? He opened his mouth then shut it. Coward. Jody clutched her robe like it was some kind of armor. Trey, please just let me explain. Let's go home and talk. Home? I scoffed. You think you still have a home? I shook my head, my grip tightening on my phone. Nah. That's gone, Jody. You made sure of that the second you let him put his hands on you. Her face crumpled and for a second I saw real fear there. Not guilt, fear. Because she was finally realizing what she was losing. I pulled out a manila envelope from my jacket and tossed it onto the hotel bed. What's that? She whispered. Divorce papers, I said, my voice steady. Already signed on my end. All you gotta do is put your name on them. Her eyes went wide. Wait, what? Trey, no, we can fix this. We can go to therapy, I'll do anything. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yeah. Like how my dad and mom fixed their marriage after his affair. You think I'm gonna be like her? Just sit there and pretend like this didn't happen. I shook my head. No. I learned from watching her. I'm not that guy. She broke then. The tears started, the shaking hands, the way she looked at me like I was the one betraying her. Stan cleared his throat. Look man, maybe we should. I turned on him so fast he took a step back. You don't get to speak. He shut up. Jody tried again, reaching for me. Trey, please. I love you. I took a deep breath, looked her right in the eyes and said, No, Jody. You loved the security I gave you. The stability. The life we built. But if you loved me. I glanced at Stan, then back at her. We wouldn't be standing in this damn hotel room right now, would we? She sobbed, shaking her head, but I was done. I turned and walked to the door. Before I left, I glanced back at Stan. Hope she was worth it, man. 'Cause I just made sure she's got nowhere else to go. Then I walked out, leaving them both in that cheap hotel room, watching their little fantasy crumble around them. I walked out of that hotel room feeling nothing. No rage, no sadness, just cold, sharp clarity. Jody had thrown away everything for a fling with Stan Morrison, and I wasn't about to let her walk away without consequences. By the time I got to my car, my phone was already buzzing. Jody. I let it ring. Then a text came in. Trey, please. Don't do this. Just talk to me. Delete. I had a much bigger plan to focus on. The first step. Her job. Jody and Stan worked at the same company, and while I wasn't the type to just call up her boss and air our dirty laundry, I was the type to make sure her reputation burned just like our marriage. I forwarded everything, photos, audio, even a video clip, straight to HR. Anonymously, of course. See, Jody wasn't just having a casual fling with Stan. He was her subordinate. Workplace affair? That's one thing. Sleeping with someone under you in the company? That's a career killer. Within 30 minutes I got a text from Michael, the coworker who tipped me off in the first place. Michael, holy crap dude. The whole office is talking about it. HR pulled Jody and Stan into a meeting. It's bad. Me, good. Step 2. Her comfort. Jody didn't know it yet, but I'd already been one step ahead. Before I even knocked on that hotel room door, I'd gone to the bank and started separating our finances. Froze joint accounts. Changed passwords. My lawyer had drawn up the divorce papers weeks ago when I first suspected something was off, so all I had to do was file them. The house. In my name. Her car. Leased under me. Every little safety net she thought she had? Gone. By the time she walked through our front door that night, I'd already packed her things. She found me sitting in the living room, sipping a beer. Her face was streaked with mascara, her hands shaking. Trey, she started, her voice hoarse, please don't do this. I took a slow sip, then set the bottle down. You have 15 minutes to grab your stuff. After that, you're out. Her eyes went wide. Wait, what? I gestured to the suitcases by the door. I packed for you. Trey, please, she whispered, stepping closer. I'll quit my job. I'll cut off Stan. We can fix this. I'll do anything. I just stared at her. You should have thought of that before you got in that hotel bed, Jody. She broke then, sobbing, gripping my arm. I made a mistake. No, I cut her off, standing up. A mistake is spilling coffee. A mistake is taking a wrong turn. You didn't trip and land in bed with Stan, Jody. You made a choice. Now live with it. She collapsed onto the couch, her whole body shaking. Where am I supposed to go? I grabbed my beer, took another sip and shrugged. Not my problem. And then I walked out, leaving her sitting there in the ruins of the life she destroyed. Jody didn't leave that night. She sat there on the couch, hugging her knees, sobbing like some tragic movie character. Maybe she thought if she looked pathetic enough, I'd change my mind. I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door. You can let yourself out, I said over my shoulder. I won't be here when you do. Trey, please. She cried, scrambling to her feet. Just let's talk tomorrow when we're both calm, okay? We can figure something out. I turned back, meeting her desperate gaze. We already figured something out, Jody. You chose Stan. Now deal with it. And then I left. I spent the night at my brother's place. Told him everything. He didn't even look surprised. Damn man, he muttered, shaking his head. I never liked her. Yeah, well, I sighed, rubbing my temples. You were right. We drank. Talked. And for the first time in weeks I actually felt like I could breathe. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of missed calls and texts. Jody, Trey, please talk to me. Jody, I don't have anywhere to go. Jody, can we at least just meet? Just once? Then one from Michael. Michael, dude. Jody got fired. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. Me, already? Michael, yeah. Stan, too. Office is AF ***ing mess right now. HR is acting like they never existed. It's crazy, ***. I leaned back, staring at the screen. I thought I'd feel happy hearing that. Thought I'd feel satisfied. Instead, I just felt numb. Not because I regretted it. No, Jody deserved everything coming her way. But because it was happening so fast. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, imagining how I'd ruin her, how I'd make her pay. And now, the dominoes were falling on their own. I scrolled back to Jody's messages. My finger hovered over the reply button. Then I locked my phone and tossed it on the bed. Let her sit in the mess she made. I wasn't done yet. By the afternoon, Jody was desperate. She hadn't stopped texting. Jody, Trey, please. Just tell me where I'm supposed to go. Jody, I can't stay with my parents, they won't even let me in. Jody, Stan won't answer my calls. Jody, please. I have nothing. Just talk to me. I smirked at that last one. She had nothing. That was the point. I ignored the messages. But then, a couple of hours later, a knock on my brother's door. I already knew who it was before I opened it. Jody stood there looking like a wreck. Her eyes were red, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing the same clothes from the night before. She must have been driving around all day trying to figure out where to go. Trey. Her voice cracked. I folded my arms. What do you want, Jody? She sniffled, clutching her phone like it was the only thing holding her together. I have nowhere to go. I lost my job. I lost everything. Please just let me stay just for a little while. I'll sleep on the couch. I just need time to figure things out. I laughed. Actually laughed. You want to stay? Here. I stepped aside, pointing to my brother, who was standing behind me with his arms crossed. Yeah, I don't think that's happening. Come on, Trey, she whispered, her voice barely holding together. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking straight. I got caught up in something stupid and ruined everything. You sure did, I said coolly. And that's not my problem. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Please, she begged, stepping closer. I know you still care about me. I know you do. Just give me a chance to make this right. I stared at her for a long moment. Then finally I spoke. You don't get it, do you, Jody? I said, my voice cold. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you. And that's worse. Because it means I don't care what happens to you. Her face crumpled. Trey. I stepped back inside and slammed the door in her face. She stood out there for a while. I could hear her crying. But I didn't open the door again. She was finally alone. Just like she deserved. Jody didn't stop trying. She blew up my phone for days. Calls. Texts. Voicemails filled with sobbing and apologies. I ignored every single one. Then, out of nowhere, silence. No messages. No calls. Nothing. I thought maybe she finally gave up. Moved on. But then, Michael texted me. Michael, dude, you're not gonna believe this. Jody showed up at Stan's place. I sat up, eyes narrowing. Me and Michael, Stan's girlfriend, answered the door. That made me pause. Girlfriend? Me, wait, he had a girlfriend this whole time. Michael, yup. Lived together for 3 years. Jody thought she was the only one? LMAO. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Jody had blown up her entire life for Stan. And he hadn't even chosen her. Later that night, curiosity got the best of me. I checked her social media. She'd wiped everything. No cute couple photos. No selfies. No posts about our perfect life. Just gone. I clicked on Stan's page next. His relationship status still said in a relationship. His girlfriend? Still posting like nothing happened. So Jody had nothing. No job. No home. No backup plan. And now? Not even Stan. I should have felt satisfied. Should have felt that this was the moment I had been waiting for. But instead, all I felt was emptiness. Because the truth was, Jody wasn't worth my time anymore. She was just another mistake I'd left behind. A week passed. No texts. No calls. Silence. For the first time in months, I finally felt like I could breathe. Then, late one night, a knock at my door. I already knew who it was. I opened it and there she stood. Jody. She looked rough. Dark circles under her eyes. Clothes wrinkled like she hadn't changed in days. She clutched her phone in one hand and a small duffel bag in the other. I sighed. Jody. What do you want? She licked her lips like she was trying to figure out how to say it. Then, I have nowhere else to go. I leaned against the doorframe. Not my problem. She blinked rapidly like she was trying not to cry. Trey, please. Just let me stay for a little while. I'll sleep on the floor if I have to. I stared at her. And where's Stan? Her face twisted. He won't talk to me. I smirked. Ah. So now you come crawling back. She flinched. I never stopped loving you, Trey. I actually laughed. You didn't stop loving me. You replaced me. Her hands tightened around her bag. I made a mistake. I tilted my head. And what exactly do you expect from me, Jody? You think we just go back to normal? That I forgive you? She swallowed hard. I just need time. Just a little time to figure things out. I let out a slow breath, staring at the broken woman in front of me. Then I stepped forward, so close she had to tilt her head up to look at me. Jody, I said quietly, my voice firm. I wouldn't take you back if you were the last woman on earth. Her face crumpled. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel anything. I stepped back, gripping the edge of the door. Now get off my porch. She choked out a sob. Trey. Slam. I shut the door in her face. And this time, I didn't feel an ounce of regret. I thought that was the last of her. But 2 days later, Michael called me. Dude, he said, his voice full of disbelief. You're not gonna believe where I just saw Jody. I sighed. Let me guess. Stan's place again. Nope, he said. She's at the bar down the street from your house. That made me pause. Why the hell would she be there? Michael hesitated. She's not doing great, man. She looks like she hasn't slept in days. She's been drinking alone for hours. Keeps looking at her phone like she's waiting for a text that's never coming. I exhaled slowly. Not my problem. I know, Michael said. But I think she's hoping you'll show up. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the hotel. The lies. The betrayal. Jody made her choice. Now she had to live with it. Hours later, I got another text from Michael. Michael, she got kicked out of the bar. Too drunk. Threw up outside. I didn't respond. Then at 2 a.m. my phone buzzed. Jody, I'm sorry, Trey. I ruined everything. I wish I could take it back. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, I turned off my phone and went to sleep. She wasn't my problem anymore. The next morning, I woke up to 3 more texts from Jody. Jody, please just talk to me. Jody, I don't know what to do anymore. Jody, Trey. I don't want to be alone. I sighed, tossing my phone onto the bed. She was unraveling. I had expected anger from her, denial, blame, maybe even some twisted attempt to turn things around on me. But this was pure desperation. Michael texted me again around noon. Michael, hey, so Jody's staying at some cheap motel now. People at work are saying she spent her last paycheck on it. She's officially got nothing left. I ran a hand through my hair. Jesus. Michael, she's still calling Stan, but he won't answer. His girlfriend made him block her on everything. She's completely alone. I should have felt something. Pity, maybe. Regret. But all I felt was closure. She had thrown everything away for a man who didn't even want her. Now, she had to sit in the ashes of the life she destroyed. Still, something told me this wasn't over yet. Jody wasn't the type to just accept consequences. And I had a feeling she had one last move left to play. I didn't hear from Jody for 2 days. No texts. No calls. No desperate knocks at my door. For a second I thought maybe she'd finally given up. Then, out of nowhere, my mother called. "Trey," she said, her voice cautious. "Jody came to see me." I sat up straight. "What?" "She showed up at my house last night," Mom sighed. "Crying. Begging me to talk to you. Said she made the biggest mistake of her life." I clenched my jaw. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her," my mother said firmly, "that she lost the right to be in this family the second she betrayed my son." For the first time in weeks I actually smiled. "Thanks, Mom." She huffed. "That girl always took you for granted." I knew at the moment she stepped into my house asking for forgiveness. "She doesn't want you, Trey. She wants her old life back." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I figured." "Be careful," she warned. "I don't think she's done yet." I hung up, shaking my head. Jody had officially hit rock bottom. She had lost me, her job, her reputation, Stan, and now even my family. But I knew her. And something told me she still wasn't ready to accept defeat. She had one last card to play. And I had a feeling she was about to use it. It happened that same night. I was sitting on my couch watching TV when my phone buzzed. "Jody." I sighed, already knowing this was going to be some last-ditch attempt to claw her way back into my life. I almost ignored it. But something told me to read it. "Jody, if you don't talk to me, I'm leaving town." I stared at the screen. "That's your big move, Jody? Threatening to disappear?" I didn't respond. Seconds later, another text. "Jody, I mean it. I'll be gone tomorrow. You'll never see me again. Is that what you really want?" I laughed out loud. Because I could hear the desperation in those words. This wasn't a real threat. She didn't have anywhere to go. No friends. No job. No backup plan. She was waiting for me to panic. To rush in and beg her to stay. She still thought she had power over me. She didn't. So I typed out the only response that mattered. "Me, goodbye, Jody." Then, I blocked her number. And just like that, I was finally free. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. For the first time in months, I didn't check my phone expecting another desperate message. I didn't feel that weight in my chest, that lingering anger, that urge to check what Jody was doing. Because she was gone. Michael confirmed it later that day. "Michael, dude, she actually left." "Me, what do you mean?" "Michael, checked out of the motel this morning. Nobody knows where she went. She didn't tell anyone." I just stared at the screen. I wasn't sure if she actually left town or if this was just another manipulative stunt, one last attempt to make me regret walking away. But the truth, I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, I didn't care. Jody had spent months tearing my life apart, dragging me through the dirt, expecting me to wait for her, to forgive her, to take her back. And now, she was the one left with nothing. I put my phone down, took a deep breath, and walked outside. For the first time since this all started, I felt free. A month passed. Then 2. No calls. No texts. No signs of Jody. At first, I half expected her to crawl back, to show up at my door, to send a letter, to find some excuse to force her way into my life again. But she never did. She was gone. And me? I moved on. I started going out again. Seeing friends. Picking up old hobbies I had pushed aside during my marriage. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. Wasn't second-guessing every little thing. One night, Michael and I were grabbing drinks when he suddenly said, "So, you gonna start dating again?" I shrugged. "Maybe. I'm not in a rush." He smirked. "That waitress has been eyeing you for the past hour." I glanced up and sure enough she was. A few months ago, I wouldn't have even noticed. Would have been too buried in my own misery to care. But now, I raised my glass in her direction and she smiled back. And just like that, I realized Jody was nothing but a bad memory. She had ruined herself. And me. I had my whole life ahead of me.
Bye.